galvanised, making it glow and appear almost to levitate above the darkened peak. By day or night, no matter where you may go in the city of Rio, the statue has the presence of an icon. So you can see closer up pictures here. This is the figure's hand, outstretched hand, and here we have a statue on top of the mountain. Let me show you. Amazing. So it says, after riding up the mountain, visitors must climb more than 200 steps to the statue's base. Floodlights lend the towering statue a heavenly radiance. The name of the mountain upon which the figure rises, Corcovado, means hunchback, a reference to its shape. Amazing. Okay, so let me go to the next indicator. Here we go. So we've gone from Brazil to England. And the Houses of Parliament in London. A symbol of London, the clock tower, stands 320 feet high and houses Big Ben, the bell, whose chimes are familiar around the world on broadcasts by the BBC World Service. Okay, let's find out a bit more. Standing grandly on the bank of the Thames, the Houses of Parliament trumpet the self-confidence of Victorian England in an era when the sun never set on the British Empire. Officially called the Palace of Westminster, the neo-Gothic building takes on a storybook glow at night when its spires and towers are flooded with gold and green light. The building rose on the foundations of a royal palace that burned almost completely in 1834. The surviving Westminster Hall dates to the 11th century. The present boats, log rollers and sledges. Stonehenge's third phase, a century later, created the arrangement of stones, whose remains we see today. The stones, hauled 20 miles from the Marlborough Downs, weighed as much as 50 tons apiece. They were set upright in a circle and topped with a continuous ring of stone lintels. Inside was a horseshoe arrangement of other trilithons or trilithons. The questions about Stonehenge remain, despite mystical notions that the Druids built Stonehenge. These Celtic people didn't reach Britain until long after the last stone was put in place. Most of what has been written about Stonehenge is nonsense or speculation, says one British archaeologist. No one will ever have a clue what its significance was. So if I show you this picture at the top, you can see Stonehenge with the countryside around it. And here is a close-up of the stones. Amazing. It probably took 600 labourers to track one of the stones to the site. How did Bronze Age builders manage to cut, transport and erect stones that weighed as much as 50 tons? So, next we have Roman and Georgian Bath. Now, the pronunciation of this particular place in England can be troublesome depending on where you come from. Now, I'm from the north, and so therefore I would call it Bath with a hard vowel sound on the A. Bath. If I was from Bath, or if I was from the south of the country, I would call it Bath with an R sound on the A. I know that sometimes for non-UK people it can be difficult to hear that distinction, but there's a definite distinction if you listen to it. Bath, Bath. Anyway, let's read about it. exactly what you would expect a Scottish castle to look like. Edinburgh Castle stands high on a peak with stone walls and ramparts rising out of a volcanic crag. The foundation rock of the castle was cut sheer on three sides by ancient glaciers, creating a natural defensive position that has served as a fortress since the Bronze Age. The earliest written records document the Northumbrian King Edwin building defences on this site in the 7th century. Since then, Edinburgh Castle has been expanded and rebuilt numerous times in accordance with the course of war and the needs of the growing army. The castle dominates Edinburgh, and in turn it offers spectacular views across the city. Visitors approach on the Esplanade, a parade ground where the stirring summer military tattoo is performed. They enter a gate guarded by statues of Scottish resistance hero William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, whose military campaign re-established Scotland as a separate kingdom. Above the gate is inscribed the Latin royal motto, Nemo me impune lacessit, which can translate as "no one attacks me and gets away with it." Straight to the point. Despite the castle's military atmosphere, there is also sanctity here. In a 12th century chapel built to honour the saintly Queen Margaret, renowned for her charity to beggars, the simple place of worship probably looks much as it did in her time. History was written in the palace area of the castle, in a modest chamber, where Mary, Queen of Scots, gave birth to the son who would become James VI of Scotland and James I of England. Mary came to the castle for this event because of its symbolic role as the seat of Scottish royalty. So the next one to look at is a hop, skip and a jump across the English Channel to Paris, France and the Eiffel Tower. Here it is. As strong as iron, yet as delicate as lace, the Eiffel Tower is the romantic symbol of Paris. Interestingly, its design was at first disdained by the city's artists and writers, who protested the tower's construction of course, we have hopped across to Italy. I should have said that. Okay. So, one of the world's most recognisable buildings is surely the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Go see it if you're so inclined. Pun. When construction of this campanile began in 1173, Pisa was a trading centre at the peak of its military might and artistic achievement. Much to the embarrassment of Pisans, however, the white marble tower began to tilt even before its third story was finished in 1274. Perhaps engineer Pisano failed to consider the consequences of designing a 185-foot tall tower with a stone foundation only about 10 feet thick, and this thin base rests on soft sand, rubble and clay, not firm underpinnings for an almost 16,000-ton tower. The structure continued to settle unevenly. Nonetheless, construction continued. To make up for the tilt, builders made each new tier a little taller on the short side, but the additional stone only made the tower sink more. Upon completion in 1350, the tower was leaning a full 4 feet 7 inches from vertical. Up in the belfry, the weight of the bells caused the structure to tilt still farther. By the late 20th century, the tower was leaning more than 17 feet toward the south, and a rescue operation was begun. Engineers removed soil from under the north side of the tower to even out the differences in the foundation. During the restoration, visitors were not allowed to enter the tower and climb the 293-step spiral staircase to the top. The lean was reduced by more than 15 inches. Hard to believe. What less would you expect for a tower standing on what Pisans call the Campo dei Miracoli, the field of miracles? Here's the top of the tower, and it says Galileo climbed to the top of the tower to conduct his historic experiments on gravity and the velocity of taxes during idle time after the harvest was